Hello, my dear friends. Tonight, let's set aside the weight of the day. Take a deep breath in, let it go, and allow yourself to drift into a different time, a different place. A place where legends were born and whispers of magic filled the air. You've probably heard the story of King Arthur, the noble king, the shining sword Excalibur, and the legendary knights of the Round Table. But tonight, let's hear a version rarely told, a story through the eyes of his sister, Morgan le Fay, the woman history painted as a sorceress, a villain, yet perhaps her truth was never as simple as good or evil. On a night beneath the sky scattered with stars, long before Arthur's crown shone bright, Morgan stood atop the tower of Camelot. The wind brushed her face, carrying whispers from the dark forest beyond. Arthur, the chosen one, the savior, everyone said, but to Morgan, those words stung like quiet daggers in her chest. Since childhood, she had carried gifts unlike anyone else in her family, a sharp mind, an intuition that reached beyond the ordinary, and a strange, shimmering connection to forces unseen. Instead of admiration, those gifts brought her fear and distance. People whispered behind her back, wary of her presence. Arthur, meanwhile, was the light everyone turned to. His laughter echoed warmly in the halls, his presence welcomed with open arms. He was praised, celebrated, and beloved, and Morgan, she was the shadow that followed. She loved her brother deeply, yet that love was tangled with something bitter. Pride for him, yes, but also a hollow ache. She felt her place in the world slowly fading, hidden beneath his radiance. That night, as Arthur held the sword Excalibur, its blade gleaming with an almost divine brilliance, Morgan's heart clenched. The sword was not just steel, it was a symbol, a reminder of destiny choosing him and passing over her. But within the sting, a voice stirred in her heart. Perhaps truth is not as simple as the songs say. Perhaps this tale could be told differently. And so the seeds of her journey were sown. Morgan was not merely a jealous sorceress, as the stories would claim. She was a woman searching for her place, even if it meant reshaping the legend itself. The choice Morgan made that night was simple, yet dangerous. She would seek out the truth of her own power. If destiny had chosen Arthur, then she would carve her own. When dawn arrived, Camelot buzzed with life. The knights strained in the courtyard, their swords clashing in a rhythm like a song of war. Servants hurried through the halls, preparing for another day of grandeur in Arthur's reign. But Morgan moved silently, unseen. She carried no armor, no crown, only a cloak to shield her from curious eyes. Her destination lay beyond the castle walls, in the thick green silence of the forest. The villagers called it the Hollow Wood, a place of mystery and fear. They whispered of spirits and strange lights, of voices that lured travelers into never returning. But Morgan had no fear. She had always felt the forest welcomed her, even when the people did not. As she stepped beneath the canopy, the air shifted. Shadows grew deeper, the scent of moss and earth filling her lungs. Each step seemed to echo with secrets. Then the sound came, a low hum, almost like a heartbeat in the ground. She followed it, deeper and deeper, until she found a pool of water so still it reflected the stars, though the sun was high above. Kneeling at its edge, Morgan whispered, "If Arthur's fate is written in stone and steel, what is mine?" The water rippled, and in its reflection she did not see her own face, but the faint outline of a woman cloaked in silver light. Eyes ageless, filled with sorrow and wisdom. "Your path," the figure said softly, "is not bound by his. But beware, for to claim your power, you must walk a road of fire and shadow." Morgan's breath caught. Was this a spirit, a goddess, or perhaps just a mirror of her own longing? She could not tell, but one thing was certain. The world would no longer silence her. The spark that awakened inside Morgan lingered long after the vision faded. As she walked back through the hollow wood, she felt it pulsing in her veins, like a hidden flame waiting to rise. For the first time, she did not feel like Arthur's shadow. She felt like something more, something undefined but alive. Yet with power came unease. Morgan knew Camelot would never welcome her gifts. The people adored Arthur, not her. If they saw the fire growing inside her, they would brand her dangerous, perhaps even wicked. And so she kept her secret close. Days passed, but the vision haunted her. Each night she would return to the pool of still water, hoping the silver figure would appear again. Sometimes she saw nothing but her reflection. Other times faint whispers curled through the trees, urging her to trust the fire within. One night, as the moon spilled silver across the forest floor, Morgan decided to test her power. She reached out her hand, focused her will, and whispered words she had never been taught, but somehow always knew. The air around her stirred, the leaves trembled. Then a soft glow formed in her palm, small, flickering, yet real, a light born from her own spirit. Her heart raced. She laughed quietly, though tears pricked her eyes. She was not powerless. She was not forgotten. But just as the flame brightened, the glow scattered, vanishing like mist. From the shadows, a raven's cry cut through the silence. Morgan froze. She turned, expecting only darkness. Yet there, standing between the trees, was a cloaked figure watching her. She could not see his face,
only the gleam of eyes reflecting moonlight. He did not move closer, nor speak a word, but Morgan knew, deep in her bones, that he had witnessed everything.
Morgan's breath caught in her throat. The stranger stood as still as stone, half hidden in the shadows of the hollow wood. His cloak was dark, blending with the night, and yet the weight of his gaze pressed against her like iron. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice sharper than she intended. The figure tilted his head, then stepped forward just enough for the moonlight to brush his features. He was older than Arthur, with lines etched deep around his eyes, yet there was something timeless about him, as if he belonged more to the forest than the world of men. "I am no enemy," he said quietly. "I am one who listens to the whispers you now hear." Morgan's pulse quickened. He knows. The thought rang through her like a bell. "You saw what I did," she said. "He did," he replied. "And you should not fear it. That fire within you, it is ancient, and it is yours by right." For a moment, Morgan felt a rush of relief. Someone understood. Someone did not turn away. But suspicion quickly followed. "Why are you watching me?" The man's expression softened. "Because I once walked the same path, and because Camelot will never see you for what you are. They will call it dangerous. They will call you dangerous, unless you learn to master it." The words struck deep. He was right. She had known it all along, but hearing it aloud made her chest ache. "Teach me," she whispered. The man smiled faintly, though his eyes held sorrow. "Then meet me here when the moon is highest. There is much to learn and little time." Before she could respond, he stepped back into the shadows. Within a blink, he was gone, leaving only the cry of the raven echoing through the night. Morgan stood alone again, but something inside her had shifted. The spark was no longer a secret she carried alone. Now it was a path, one that led deeper into mystery and further from the world she had known. The nights that followed became a secret rhythm for Morgan. By day she played the role expected of her within Camelot's grand halls, smiling faintly, keeping her words few, blending into the background of Arthur's rising glory. But when the moon reached its peak, she slipped away into the hollow wood where the cloaked man awaited. His name, she learned, was Alaric, a sorcerer of old blood, one who claimed to have walked through kingdoms long forgotten. His presence was unsettling, but never cruel. His voice carried the weight of both knowledge and grief. Under his guidance, Morgan began to unlock the spark within her. At first it was simple, summoning light in the palm of her hand, listening to the whispers of the earth, feeling the pulse of roots beneath the soil. But soon it grew harder. The lessons tested her patience, her strength, even her fear.
One night, Alaric asked her to summon fire. She hesitated, trembling as she whispered the words. For a moment, nothing happened. Then flames burst forth, wild and untamed, licking the air with heat. The sight filled her with both wonder and dread. She almost lost control, until Alaric's voice cut through firmly. "Breathe, Morgan. The fire obeys you, not the other way around." With effort, she calmed it. The flames dimmed to a steady glow, curling around her hand like a living ribbon. She stared at it, her heart racing. She had never felt so alive. But alongside the thrill came a shadow of guilt. Each time she returned to Camelot, watching Arthur laugh with his knights or kneel before the people who adored him, she felt the growing weight of her secret. She told herself she was carving her own destiny, that she deserved more than to be a forgotten sister. Yet a question lingered. Was she stepping toward greatness or away from everything she once loved?
The forest had always felt like a sanctuary to Morgan, a place where shadows wrapped around her like an embrace. But that night, as she slipped quietly back toward Camelot, the feeling was different. The air seemed heavier, her every step echoing louder than it should. She paused, her senses sharp. Someone was there. At first she thought it might be Alaric watching from the trees, but the presence was not his. This one was colder, sharper, like a blade pressed lightly against her back. "Morgan?" a voice called softly from the darkness. Her breath caught. From between the trees stepped Sir Gawain, one of Arthur's most loyal knights. His armor gleamed faintly in the moonlight, though his eyes held more suspicion than warmth. "You've been wandering these woods at night," he said. It wasn't a question, it was an accusation. Morgan straightened, forcing calm into her voice. "And since when is walking a crime, Gawain?" His frown deepened. "These woods are cursed. No one enters them without reason. And you—" he hesitated, as if weighing his words. "You carry secrets. I've seen the light between the trees, unnatural light." For a moment, fear threatened to crack her composure. If Gawain reported this to Arthur, everything could unravel. But she steadied herself, meeting his gaze with quiet defiance. "Perhaps your eyes play tricks on you," she said coolly. Gawain stepped closer. "Arthur trusts you. Do not give me reason to doubt that trust." He left those words hanging in the air before turning back toward the castle. Morgan stood frozen, her hands clenched. It wasn't just suspicion, it was a warning. When the forest fell silent again, she whispered to herself, "They'll never understand." But deep inside, another voice stirred. Or perhaps they were never meant to.
Camelot glowed with celebration that week. Arthur had won another victory in the north, and the great hall rang with music, laughter, and the clinking of goblets. Yet, amidst the cheer, Morgan felt the weight of Gawain's watchful eyes. He lingered at the edge of the hall, his gaze flicking toward her too often to be chance. Arthur, ever the golden king, noticed nothing at first.
He greeted Morgan warmly, as he always did, offering her a smile that made her chest ache with old affection. But later, when the feast had dwindled and the torches burned low, he found her alone by the window, the moonlight spilling across her face. "You've been quiet," Arthur said softly. Morgan turned, masking her unease with a faint smile. "Perhaps I've just grown weary of endless songs of glory." Arthur chuckled gently. "I know you better than that, sister. There's something distant about you lately, something I can't place." His words cut deeper than she expected. He wasn't accusing her like Gawain. He was worried. The warmth in his eyes reminded her of the boy she once adored, before destiny had carved a crown onto her brow. She swallowed hard. "You see shadows where there are none, Arthur." But Arthur didn't look convinced. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "If ever you carry burdens too heavy, you need only tell me. I will listen." For a moment, Morgan nearly broke. She longed to confess, to share everything, the visions, the spark, the secret lessons in the hollow wood. But then she remembered Gawain's warning, the fear that would ripple through the court if they knew. She pulled her hand away, her voice low. "Some burdens are not meant for kings." Arthur studied her, troubled. He didn't press further, but the worry in his eyes lingered. And Morgan knew her path was no longer invisible to him. The days that followed pressed heavily on Morgan. Arthur's eyes lingered too long, filled with questions he would not voice. Gawain's suspicion sharpened, his presence shadowing her steps through the castle halls. Even the servants whispered more than usual, their chatter soft but piercing. Morgan sought solace where she always did, in the hollow wood. There Alaric waited, his expression grave the moment he saw her. "They are watching you," he said. Morgan stiffened. "You knew?" He nodded slowly. "It was inevitable. A fire cannot be hidden forever. The more you grow, the more they will fear you. Even Arthur." Her chest tightened. "He is my brother. He would not turn against me." Alaric's gaze was steady, filled with a sadness that unsettled her. "He is a king first, Morgan. A king serves his people, and his people will never embrace what you are." The words struck like a blade. She wanted to deny them, to defend Arthur, to cling to the memory of his warmth at the feast. But deep inside she knew Alaric was right. She had seen it in Gawain's eyes, felt it in the silence of the court. Camelot would never see her more than a shadow. That night, Alaric placed a small stone into her hand. It pulsed faintly, warm against her skin. "This is no weapon. It is a mirror. It will show you who you are meant to become." Morgan held it tightly, her breath trembling. For years she had been defined by Arthur's light, her identity swallowed by his legend. Now she stood at the edge of something vast, something dangerous, but wholly her own. She closed her fist around the stone, and for the first time she allowed herself to wonder, what if my destiny is not beside Arthur's, but against it. The days blurred into weeks, and Camelot began to change. Where once Morgan had been tolerated, now she was watched. Servants' eyes darted away when she entered a room. Knights stiffened at her passing, hands drifting unconsciously toward their swords. Arthur tried to bridge the silence. He sought her counsel at council meetings, invited her to sit nearer at feasts, but the warmth between them had begun to fray. Gawain's whispers to the king grew sharper, warnings wrapped in loyalty. "You cannot ignore it forever, my lord," Morgan overheard him say one evening outside the council chamber. "Magic leaves a stain. If we let it grow in our midst, it will undo all you have built." Arthur's reply was quiet, almost pained. "She is my sister. And Mordred, what if she fills his heart with the same shadow? Will Camelot's future be forged in sorcery?" The words coiled around Morgan's heart. Mordred, Arthur's secret son, hidden from many, yet known to her. She had seen the boy, fragile and fierce, destined for a path none could escape. Gawain was right in one thing. Mordred would be drawn to her, for he carried in him the same restless fire. That night Morgan returned to the hollow wood. Alaric was waiting, as always, but his tone was no longer gentle. "You cannot linger between two worlds forever," he told her. "Camelot will never accept you. Arthur may love you, but he will sacrifice you if it means saving his crown. You must choose your blood or your power." Morgan clenched her jaw. "And if I choose both?" Alaric's expression softened, almost sorrowful. "Then you will lose everything." Morgan turned away, but in her chest the stone pulsed faintly, as though answering a question she had not yet dared to ask. For the first time she realized her story might not be about preserving Camelot at all. It might be about tearing it apart. Seasons turned, and whispers of fate grew louder within the walls of Camelot. Knights spoke of distant wars, of strange omens in the sky, but Morgan's mind rested on one thing only: Mordred. The boy grew quickly, restless and questioning. He sought her out, drawn to her as if by invisible threads. At night, by firelight, Morgan told him truths Arthur had hidden. She spoke of bloodlines, of betrayal, of the weight of destiny. "You are his son," she whispered, "born in secret, denied by those who fear what you might become. But you are not a shadow, Mordred. You are a king waiting to rise." The boy's eyes glittered with both pride and doubt. "And my father? Will he ever claim me?" Morgan's lips curled into a bitter smile. "He will never claim you, child, but one day he will bow to you, whether in loyalty or in ruin." Meanwhile, Camelot thrived under Arthur's rule, blind to the storm gathering at its heart. To the people, Morgan was a distant figure, sometimes healer, sometimes witch. To Arthur, she was still his sister, though doubt gnawed at his trust. And to Mordred, she was the only truth he had ever known. Alaric's words haunted her even then. Choose blood or power. Yet Morgan had chosen both, and in doing so, she had set the stage for a tragedy that would echo through ages. And so, the tale of Morgan le Fay does not end with kindness or forgiveness, but with a choice that bound her to destiny. In her heart, she longed to protect her brother's kingdom, yet in her hands she held the power to destroy it.
History would remember her as a witch, a traitor, a shadow in Arthur's light. But perhaps, if you listen closely to the wind that whispers through old stone halls, you will hear another story, one of a woman who loved too fiercely, fought too desperately, and carved her place in legend not by fate alone, but by her own hand. For in every tale of kings and heroes, there is always a voice left unheard. This was hers. And that's the end of tonight's story. Remember, even the smallest hearts can carry the biggest dreams. Close your eyes now. Let the worries of the day drift away, and may your sleep be as peaceful and magical as this new land. Good night, my friend. Sweet